Alright, so this is a follow-up video from my last video talking about all the stuff that really isn't talked about here on Earth. So like I said, everything's made up of power, and there's an order of creation based on numbers 0 through infinity. Every number has its own word. Um, Without power, nothing would be made. And I actually figure out how much power the whole, as in the Most High, has. So if you take one piece of power, which is 1,000 pounds, and you multiply that by infinity, then you have a row of 1,000 pounds. Then you multiply that row by infinity. Now you have a set of 1,000 pounds. Then you multiply that set by infinity, and then you have another row of 1,000 pounds of sets. So you keep doing that. So you multiply a piece. You do that an infinite amount of times, and that's how much power the Most High actually has. And in the beginning, the it goes from ranks whole, and then a half, and then a third, and then a fourth. So it goes down all the way like that, and then the last person has an infinite. If an infinite was a fraction, one in infinite, then that's how much he would have of that math equation I just told you, which would make sense if you're pretty good at math. So anyways, like I said, there's certain powers. There's truth, strength, mind, alter, graph, puzzle, child, parent, matter. What else? Just a few more. I know 13 of them. So each number has its own row of powers. So like if you were to make a graph, and you were to put 0 through infinity on a graph, you would then write under each number 1 through infinity. And by each number you would have a word, and that would be the word in which category is the word is for that number. So like for power, that's number 14. You would have those words I just said. I only know up to the 13th, and I think that's what the Most High knows, because I base that off of a graph. If you were to spread stuff out equally, instead of knowing a 14th, you would have each power. You would have power. You would have less power. You would have the same amount of power, but more stuff. So you would have less power for each power. So say you had, you knew 1 through 13th of powers. You knew 13 powers. So you divided up first power as a whole. So you take a whole, let's just say you take 1,000 pounds and you divide it up. First is a whole, second is a half, third is a fourth, or third is a third, fourth is a fourth, and so on. And you did that till you got 13th. So the first would have a whole, and you would divide it, and the 13th would have a 13th. But if you did it 14th, you would still have 1,000 pounds, but now you would have less power in the whole as a whole, and because you'd be supplying for a 14th power now, if that makes sense. So that's why I think the Most High only stops at a 13th, because if he knew more, then he would have less power to do things with. He would have the same amount of power, but it'd be spread out different, and he would be able to do less things. So, like I said, everything's made up of power. We weren't going to exist in the beginning. It was just going to be Adam and Eve and their son and daughter. But when Adam sinned, God then cursed him and made him have more children. So just kind of like that math problem I just said with 13th and the 14th, he had more power. His son had more power, But now that it's spread out, now that he has more children, it's the same amount of power, but it's spread out now. So there's an infinite amount of men and women. You know, they were all married in the beginning, and then, which was probably 7,000, what I think is 7,519 years ago, because in the book of Adam and Eve, it said that Jesus was coming at 5,500 years, and that was 0 BC or whatever, and now it's 2,000 years later. So that's why I think the Earth is only 7,000 years old. And like I said, God had to create children, all the men, and so they got married, they were assigned their ranks, everybody was satisfied, and then only half were given the choice to sin or not. If they didn't sin, they would keep all their power that they had, but if they did sin, they would then start losing power. So half of the men chose to sin. They still got their women, and their women are sinless. Their wives are sinless, and their son and daughter is sinless, but because they're from the woman, and the first woman is sacred, and anything from her directly is considered sacred, and it can't sin. But so with that being said, we're here today, and we lost a lot of power because we know we curse, and we kill each other, and we do sexual profanity things, and that makes you lose power, and it's never going to be given back to you. Once you lose it, it becomes God's power. So technically Adam teamed up with a group when you team up with a large amount of people, such as half an infinite of men, even though they're smaller power, is considered a group, and God doesn't allow men to be in groups because it's not sacred, it's not holy. And he has now challenged Adam to finish him off, and then after, if he does kill Adam, then he will, just like Noah and Abraham, when Sodom and Gomorrah and the flood killed everybody, and then everybody will be raised again after Adam is done sinning. Then everybody will come back to life. You'll have to bring yourself back to life, and God will only do so much for you because of how we've acted towards him, and we haven't stopped sinning. So that's how he looks at us. If we stop sinning, he'll help us more, but if we keep sinning, we'll have less power, and he'll help us less. So right now we have really a small amount of power. I mean, it's a lot if you do the math equation I told you in the beginning, and then we're the infinite below that, infinite of a whole. It's really a lot, but it's pretty sad that people choose to sin and want to keep sinning and just lose power and never have it back. So that's my video for today. Alright, see you.